Hello and welcome back. I'm officially 40. Janie's back. If you haven't seen Janie, she's back. She was at my mum-in-law's house. Look at Janie. She's so cute. I love her so much. I got the perfect gifts. How many cool friends I have. I'm so blessed. I'm feeling so blessed. Look at what I got. Jane Austen playing cards, and not only are they just playing cards, but they teach you some Regency era games. And in this set of cards is whist. It's all I've ever wanted in my whole life since I've been 39. They made a little cute little Mad Lib for me, and we did a little Balderdash game where people wrote down all the definitions of what they thought the words were gonna be. Put your hat back on, Janie. So being proper. We made. This is definitely my. This was just an example of one that one could make. So it was sort of on display. But people did make hats, and it was so enjoyable. And this is my hat that I made. Are you kidding? And it tied up into like a really nice bow. It tied into a really nice bow, this thick, droopy little. It was really fun. Everybody made a hat, and I got a picture with everybody's hats that they made. We just sit around and made hats and listened to the Pride and Prejudice music. My mom's boyfriend got me this new microphone, so hopefully y'all can hear me a little better because she was saying how she can't really hear me very well. And we went to Barnes and Noble. Okay, I listened to that Love and Work of Jane Austen by that one girl who was from that one college, that one video that I put at the end of the other video that one time. Hold on. Love and Work of Jane Austen by this one woman who went to this one college this one time. Love and Work. Love and Work of Janie Austen. Whoa, whoa. I grew up in church, so I feel like when I improvisational sing, it does sound like Sunday school. It does sound like Janie is an awesome girl, she reigns. You know, that kind of thing. Life and Work of Jane Austen by Lorraine Murphy from Hillsdale College. I knew it was a person who went to a college, and there is a place and there's a video. And she was talking about all these epistolaries. That's not how you say epistolaries. My mom corrected me, and I can't remember how you're supposed to say it. She had all the, and I found this book at Barnes and oh, wow. I found this book at Barnes and Noble called Love and Friendship and Other Youthful Writings by Jane Austen, and Lady Susan is in here. And there's so many other letters to Cassandra, and I'm so excited about it. Let's read it at the end. Who wants to? Raise your hand if you want to read me to read it out loud to you at the end after I'm done with all the books. I see a lot of hands raised out there. Majority rules, we're going to do it. And this was just a fun game to play that my mom and I just did it the day after my party, where we got this book and we read aloud some she read some quotes, and I had to guess what book it's from, even though I haven't read all the books. She's a selfish, hypocritical woman, and I have no opinion of her. And that is from Pride and Prejudice, and that makes me want to go back and read all of the books again. Because I've heard you're supposed to. I've heard that you just should. So we're definitely shoulding all over ourselves, for sure. But also, I think I'm going to pick up a little more, and maybe I'll just read the books next without commentary, and then I'll move on from Jane Austen, maybe. Join Jasna, Jane Austen Society North America, get into it. Let's go to Bath soon for the Jane Austen Festival. Happy Jane Austen July coming up pretty soon. It is June still. We're in Gemini season. Uh, and go support your local library. And everybody should turn 40. And it's unfortunate when people don't. And I'm honored to be in this age and have these friends. My husband did get shingles, so he was not able to be there. And so we did just make it all girls thing. And there were about 4 other people who were supposed to come, but they do have children and they just didn't want to be possibly around me, who possibly could give them shingles, who could possibly give their children chickenpox. So they didn't come. But you know, it was the perfect amount of people. If other people had come, it might have been just like too much fun. It would have been fun, but it would have maybe been too much, you know. Everything happens for a reason. So let's continue on our reading of Emma. And so far, we are on volume 2. So far, if for a quick recap, I don't know if I could just pop on here and start reading. I don't know if I could do that. For a quick recap, Emma Woodhouse is a girl. She's young. She is rich. She's handsome. She is... I am really bad at quotes. Let me just read the first paragraph. I have read it twice already, and I just keep forgetting. Emma is a hottie with a body, and handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition. And Andrea Miller, my new friend who's commented a lot on my videos, thank you so much. Andrea. Right? I told her that, like, my last name is Monday, and I get everything but Monday. My last name is, you know, it's Moon Day, and I'll be like, it's Monday, spelled with a U, and people are like, Monduy? Names are crazy. But she just gets to inherit everything. There's no men in the family, and she just gets to inherit everything, and that's how she is rich, because I just didn't understand how rich women went back then. She just connected Miss Taylor, who is her governess, and a Mr. Weston. They are married currently, thanks to her, because she introduced them. So now she wants to be a matchmaker. This new protege of hers, Harriet Smith, is in town. Harriet Smith really likes Mr. Martin, and he did propose to her, and Emma was like, really, I think you could do better. So she rejected Mr. Martin, and that was sad, because Emma thought Harriet would be better with Mr. Elton, who is a clergyman, and who Mr. Knightley, Emma's brother-in-law, does believe wants probably something a little more higher class, higher tier, higher money than a Harriet Smith. But Emma thinks he's an idiot. He doesn't know. He's just rich and stupid. We've seen a lot of that, a lot of like many layers to Jane Austen's writing, where Emma Woodhouse is annoyed with someone for being like out of touch, but she herself is out of touch. But we don't need to be judging her either. And maybe we're out of touch. So Jane Austen is speaking to us from the dead through these books, which is beautiful. Also, Frank Churchill, who is Mr. Weston's son, who his uncle adopted him, because Mr. Churchill, the uncle, is rich. Frank Churchill is supposed to be at his dad's wedding to Miss Taylor, now newly Mrs. Weston, and he showed up. And at first, Emma was like, you know, he's a man, he can do whatever he wants, he should be here. And now that she knows that he has an aunt who simply can't let him go, she's like, well, he's doing his duty to his family. And Mr. Knightley, who's Emma's brother-in-law, through Emma's sister Isabella, who married another, Mr. Knightley also. Mr. Knightley's like, he's a man, he can do whatever he wants. They sort of have swapped opinions about Frank Churchill so far. So we left off talking about Miss Churchill and why he hasn't come yet. Not a lot happens in the book, but it does feel very like a lot of stuff is happening because there's so much character interaction, and we're constantly thinking, what's Emma doing? What is she doing? And why is she thinking that about somebody? And why is she meddling in people's lives? And she's just rich and handsome and clever. It seems like she's got all these things that everybody wants, but I don't know. We are on volume 2, chapter 1. We've just finished chapter 18, and now we're on chapter 1 of volume 2, the second movement of the play, second act of the play, if you will. Emma and Harriet had been walking together one morning, and in Emma's opinion, been talking enough of Mr. Elton for that day. It's Harriet's heart that we're dealing with, because Mr. Elton did not love Harriet at all, and only loved Emma since the beginning of Emma trying to put Harriet and Mr. Elton together. But she didn't see, she could not see. So Emma thinks that we've talked enough of Mr. Elton for the day. Interesting. She could not think that Harriet's solace or her own sins required more, and she was therefore industriously getting rid of the subject as they returned. Button burst out again when she thought she had succeeded, and after speaking some time of what the poor must suffer in winter, and receiving no other answer than a very plaintive, "Mr. Elton is so good to the poor," she found something else must be done. They were approaching the house where lived Mrs. and Mrs. Bates. She determined to call upon them and seek safety in numbers. She doesn't want to be helping Harriet. This is what it feels like. So far, Emma seems like her friendships need to be transactionary and conditional on her conditions. It doesn't feel good. I get why people don't like Emma. That's what I've heard. She's like the least liked heroine. We'll see. We're going to make our own opinions. Who cares what other people think? Okay. Safety in numbers. I love that. There was always sufficient reason for such an attention. Mrs. and Miss Bates loved to be called on, and she knew she was considered by the very few who presumed ever to see imperfection in her as rather negligent in that respect, and was not contributing what she ought to the stock of their scanty comforts. She had had many a hint from Mr. Knightley, and some from her own heart, as to her deficiency, but none were equal to counteract the persuasion of its being very disagreeable, a waste of time, tiresome women, and all the horror of being in danger of falling in with the second-rate and third-rate of Highbury, who were calling on them forever, and therefore seldom want near them. But now she made the sudden resolution of not passing their door without going in, observing as she proposed it to Harriet that, as well as she could calculate, they were just now quite safe from any letter from Jane Fairfax. She doesn't like Jane Fairfax either. Such a good idea to make it a Clueless, make it a modern 90s. That's very funny now that I'm hearing the, second and third rate of Highbury. Oh, we also watched this over the weekend. My mother was in town for my birthday, which is very sweet. From Michigan, all the way from Michigan. She came just for me for my 40th. Oh my God. We went and saw Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, and it was my new favorite movie. It was so good. And I don't remember why I brought it up. Everybody should go watch it. It's in theaters right now, but it came out in 2024. Such a good movie. The house belonged to people in business. Mrs. and Miss Bates occupied the drawing-room floor, and therefore in the very moderate-sized apartment, which was everything to them, the visitors were most cordially and even gratefully welcomed. the quiet, neat old lady who, with her knitting, was seated in the warmest corner, wanting even to give up her place to Miss Woodhouse, and her more active, talkative daughter, almost ready to overpower them with care and kindness, thanks for their visit, solicitude for their shoes, anxious inquiries after Mr. Woodhouse's health, cheerful communications about her mother's, and sweet cake from the buffet. The buffet? Okay, I think that's in the glossary and it does mean buffet. Got it. I remember saying that, but that really got me because it does look like buffet. It does make me feel like we are in New Orleans or something. Which I did watch a video of how Southern accents and most accents in America obviously can be traced back to English accents. If you talk like this and then you go and then you slow it down just a little bit, it does talk like it's but the woman who did the video was so good at it. I know I didn't do a good justice there, but it was a good video. You should check it out. Southern accents come from English accents, obviously. Mrs. Cole had been there, just called in for 10 minutes, and she had been so good as to sit an hour with them, and she had taken a piece of cake and been so kind as to say she liked it very much, and therefore she hoped Miss Woodhouse and Miss Smith would do them the favour to eat a piece too. The mention of the Coles was sure to be followed by that of Mr. Elton. There was intimacy between them, and Mr. Cole had heard from Mr. Elton since his going away. Emma knew what was coming. They must have the letter over again, and settle how long he had been gone, and how much he was engaged in company, and what a favourite he was wherever he went, and how full the master of the ceremonies ball had been. And she went through it very well, with all the interest and all the commendation that could be requisite, and always putting forward to prevent Harriet's being obliged to say a word. This she had been prepared for when she entered the house, but meant, having once talked him handsomely over, to be no farther incommoded by any troublesome topic, and to wander at large amongst all the mistress and misses of Highbury and their card parties. She had not been prepared to have Jane Fairfax succeed Mr. Elton, but she was actually hurried off by Miss Bates. She jumped away from him at last abruptly to the Coles to usher in a letter from her niece. "Oh, yes, Mr. Elton, I understood. Certainly as to dancing. Mrs. Cole was telling me that dancing at the rooms at Bath was... Mrs. Cole was so kind as to sit some time with us, talking of Jane, for as soon as she came in, she began inquiring after her. Jane is so very great a favourite there. Whenever she is with us, Mrs. Cole does not know how to show her kindness enough, and I must say that Jane deserves it as much as anybody can. And so she began inquiring after her directly, saying, 'I know you cannot have heard from Jane lately, because it's not her time for writing.' And when I immediately said, 'But indeed we have. We had a letter this very morning,' I do not know that I ever saw anybody more surprised. 'Have you, upon my honour?' said she. 'Well, that is quite unexpected. Do let me hear what she says.' Emma's politeness was at hand directly to say, with smiling interest, 'Have you heard from Miss Fairfax so lately? I am extremely happy. I hope she is well.' 'Thank you, you are so kind,' replied the happily deceived aunt, while eagerly hunting for the letter. 'Oh, here it is. I was sure it could not be far off, but I had put my huswife upon it. I had put my housewife upon it, you see, without being aware, and so it was quite hid. But I had it in my hand so very lately that I was sure it must be on the table. I was reading it to Mrs. Cole, and since she went away, I was reading it again to my mother, for it is such a pleasure to her, a letter from Jane, that she can never hear it often enough. So I knew it could not be far off, and here it is, only just under my housewife. And since you are so kind as to wish to hear what she says, but first of all, I really must, in justice to Jane, apologize for her writing so short a letter. Only 2 pages, you see, hardly 2. And in general, she fills the whole paper and crosses half. My mother often wonders that I can make it out so well. She often says, when the letter is first opened, "Well, Hetty, now I think you will be put to it to make out all that checker work. Don't you, Mum?" And then I tell her I'm sure she would contrive to make it out herself if she had nobody to do it for her, every word of it. I'm sure she would pore over it till she had made out every word. And indeed, though my mother's eyes are not so good as they were, she can amazingly well still, thank God, with the help of spectacles. It is such a blessing. My mother's are really very good indeed. Jane often says, when she is here, I am sure, Grandmamma, you must have had very strong eyes to see as you do, and so much fine work as you have done too. I only wish my eyes may last me as well." All this spoken extremely fast obliged Miss Bates to stop for breath, and Emma said something very civil about the excellence of Miss Fairfax's handwriting. "You are extremely kind," replied Miss Bates, highly gratified. You who are such a judge and write so beautifully yourself. I am sure there's nobody's praise that could give us such pleasure as Miss Woodhouse's. My mother does not hear. She's a little deaf, you know, Ma'am," addressing her. "Do you hear what Miss Woodhouse is so obliging to say about Jane's handwriting?" And Emma had the advantage of hearing her own silly compliment repeated twice over before the good old lady could comprehend it. She was pondering in the meanwhile upon the possibility, without seeming very rude, of making her escape from Jane Fairfax's letter, and had almost resolved on hurrying away directly under some slight excuse, when Miss Bates turned to her again and seized her attention. "My mother's deafness is very trifling, you see, just nothing at all. But by only raising my voice and saying anything 2 or 3 times over, she was sure to hear. But then she is used to my voice. But it is very remarkable that she should always hear Jane better than she does me. Jane speaks so distinct. However, she will not find her grandmamma at all deafer than she was 2 years ago, which is saying a great deal about my mother's time of life, and it really is full 2 years, you know, since she was here. We never were so long without seeing her before, and I was telling Mrs. Cole we shall hardly know how to make enough of her now." "You are expecting Miss Fairfax here soon?" "Ah, yes, next week." "Indeed, that must be a very great pleasure." "Thank you, you are so very kind. Yes, next week. Everybody is so surprised, and everybody says the same obliging things. I am sure she will be as happy to see her friends at Highbury as they can be to see her. Yes, Friday or Saturday, she cannot say which, because Colonel Campbell will be wanting the carriage himself one of those days. So very good of them to send her the whole way, but they always do, you know. Yes, Friday or Saturday next. That is what she writes about. That is the reason of her writing out of rule, as we call it. In the common course, we should not have heard from her before next Tuesday or Wednesday." "Yes, so I imagine. I was afraid there could be little chance of my hearing anything of Miss Fairfax today." "So obliging of you. No, we should not have heard if it had not been for this particular circumstance of her being to come here so soon. My mother is so delighted, for she is to be 3 months with us at least. 3 months, she says so, positively, as I am going to have the pleasure of reading to you. The case is, you see, that the Campbells are going to Ireland. Mrs. Dixon has persuaded her father and mother to come over and see her directly. They had not intended to go over till the summer, but she is so impatient to see them again, for till she married last October she was never away from them so much as a week, which must make it very strange to be in different kingdoms, I was going to say, but however different countries, and so she wrote a very urgent letter to her mother or her father. I declare I do not know which it was, but we shall see presently in Jane's letter. Wrote in Mr. Dixon's name as well as her own to press their coming over directly, and they would give them the meeting in Dublin and take them back to their country seat, Ballycraig, and a beautiful place, I fancy. Jane has heard a great deal of its beauty, from Mr. Dixon, I mean. I do not know that she has ever heard about it from anybody else, but it was very natural, you know, that she should like to speak of his own place while he was paying his addresses, and as Jane used to be very often walking out with them, for Colonel and Mrs. Campbell were very particular about their daughters not walking out often with only Mr. Dixon, for which I do not blame them. Of course, she had everything he might be telling Miss Campbell about his own home in Ireland, and I think she wrote us word that he had shown them some drawings of the place, views that he had taken himself. He is most amiable, charming young man, I believe. Jane was quite longing to go to Ireland from his accounts of things. At this moment, an ingenious and animating suspicion entering Emma's brain with regard to Jane Fairfax, this charming Mr. Dixon, and not going to Ireland, she said with the insidious design of further discovery. You must feel very fortunate that Miss Jane Fairfax should be allowed to come to you at such a time. Considering the very particular friendship between her and Mrs. Dixon, you could hardly have expected her to be excused from accompanying Colonel and Mrs. Campbell. Very true indeed. The very thing that we have always been rather afraid of, for we should not have liked to have her at such a distance from us for months together, not be able to come if anything was to happen. But you see, everything turns out for the best. They want her, Mr. and Mrs. Dixon, excessively to come over with Colonel and Mrs. Campbell. Quite depend upon it. Nothing can be more kind or pressing than their joint invitation, Jane says, as you will hear presently. Mr. Dixon does not seem in the least backward in any attention. He is a most charming young man, ever since the service he rendered Jane at Weymouth, when they were out in the party on the water, and she, by the sudden whirling round of something or other among the sails, would have been dashed into the sea at once, and actually was all but gone if he had not, with the greatest presence of mind, caught hold of her habit. I can never think of it without trembling, but ever since we had that history of that day, I have been so fond of Mr. Dixon. But in spite of all her friend's urgency and her own wish of seeing Ireland, Miss Fairfax prefers devoting the time to you and Mrs. Bates. Yes, entirely her own doing, entirely her own choice, and Colonel and Mrs. Campbell think she does quite right, just what they should recommend, and indeed they particularly wish her to try her native air, as she has not been quite so well as usual lately. I am concerned to hear of it. I think they judge wisely, but Mrs. Dixon must be very much disappointed. Mrs. Dixon, I understand, has no remarkable degree of personal beauty, is not by any means to be compared with Miss Fairfax. Oh, no, you are very obliging to say such things, but certainly not. There is no comparison between them. Miss Campbell always was absolutely plain, but extremely elegant and amiable. Yes, that of course. Jane caught a bad cold, poor thing, so long ago as the 7th of November, as I'm going to read to you, and has never been well since. A long time is not it for a cold to hang upon her. She never mentioned it before, because she would not alarm us, just like her, so considerate. But however, she is so far from well that her kind friends, the Campbells, think she had better come home, and try an air that always agrees with her. And they have no doubts that 3 or 4 months at Highbury will entirely cure her, and it is certainly a great deal better that she should come here than go to Ireland if she is unwell. Nobody could nurse her, as we should do. It appears to me the most desirable arrangement in the world. And so she is to come to us next Friday or Saturday, and the Campbells leave town on the way to Holyhead the Monday following, as you will find from Jane's letter. So sudden, you may guess, dear Miss Woodhouse, that a flurry it has thrown me in. What a flurry it has thrown me in, if it was not the drawback of her illness, but I am afraid we must expect to see her grown thin and looking very poorly. I must tell you what an unlucky thing happened to me as to that. I always make a point of reading Jane's letters through to myself first, before I read them aloud to my mother, you know, for fear of there being anything in them to distress her. Jane desired me to do it, so I always do, and so I begin today with my usual caution, but no sooner did I come to the mention of her being unwell than I burst out, quite frightened, with, "Bless me, poor Jane is ill," which my mother, being on the watch, heard distinctly, and was sadly alarmed. However, when I read on, I found out it was not so bad as I fancied at first, and I make so light of it now to her that she does not think it much about it. But I cannot imagine how I could be so off my guard. If Jane does not get well soon, we will call in Mr. Perry. The expense shall not be thought of, and though he is so liberal and so fond of Jane, I dare say he would not mean to charge anything for attendance. We could not suffer it to be so, you know. He has a wife and a family to maintain, and it is not to be giving away, and is not to be giving away his time. Well, now I have just given you a hint of what Jane writes about. We will return to her letter, and I am sure she tells her own story a great deal better than I can tell it for her. I'm afraid we must be running away, said Emma, glancing at Harriet and beginning to rise. My father will be expecting us. I had no intention, I thought I had no power of staying more than 5 minutes when first I entered the house. I merely called because I would not pass the door without inquiring after Mrs. Bates. But I have been so pleasantly detained. Now, however, we must wish you and Mrs. Bates good morning. Lies. She's a liar. She's a terrible, awful, popular girl liar. And not all that could be urged to detain her succeeded. She regained the street, happy in this, that though much had been forced on her against her will, though she had in fact heard the whole substance of J.F. Fairfax's letter, she had been able to escape the letter itself. Why is she trying to escape letters that other people want to read to her? I mean, I get it, but is she just being rude? She's just being a popular, rude girl. Wow. Lots to catch, lots to be caught up on. I love Miss Bates. I love Miss Bates. And she's just salt of the earth good and good people. And just a really nice person to have around. I love a fast-talking, I think I get along really well with the hyper-vigilant, fast-talking, hyped-up, highly caffeinated seeming people who don't dare to drink caffeine because it makes them tired. I love people with ADHD. I'm not diagnosing anything and I don't know anything about it. So happy to be back. So happy to be 40. So happy to have survived this long on this earth. So happy to be reading to all of you. Take care, everybody, and happy reading to you all. What did I read? That's what I wanted to do. I did hear this quote in Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, and I'll start with it next time. And it says something to the effect, it's not a direct quote. Literature is the only remedy for the disorder of thoughts and feelings. Until death, it is all life. It was such a good movie. All right. Happy reading. Happy watching movies about Jane Austen. Happy learning is what we should say. And ta-da!